On today's episode, we have Mr. San Antonio himself, my buddy Louie Guzman. Louie's now working with San Antonio Sports, and we talk a little bit about what he's been doing lately with them. San Antonio Sports is transforming the community through the power of sport. A lot of interesting things they have going on around San Antonio and just events they put on. I really enjoy talking to Louie, and I love having him on the podcast.
You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Louie Guzman.
Yes, sir.
How's it going, brother?
It's fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, you know what's funny is I have some friends that they don't do it so much anymore, but they used to be World of Warcraft nerds. And I always thought it was so funny because they would go spend the night out in the parking lot because they wanted to get the new game or whatever that was coming out.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's what you do with Toyota, man. You have the nicest Tundras.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I don't even know, I don't even see them on the lots. What are you doing? What do you know at Toyota?
It's crazy. I'm in my third Toyota now.
Okay.
And I got the first one was a black one. Mm-hmm. I went in for an oil change.
I think that's when I met you. You had the black one.
Yes. And because I was working in New Braunfels, and I was driving a Highlander. Exquisite, like the Highlander.
They're nice.
Pearl colored paint job, leather interior, all the accessories. Like it was a beautiful vehicle. And when I would go to meetings, nobody would talk to me.
Really?
Like I would go, I'm going on behalf of the food bank. I'm attending meetings, and the guys out there, I would just, there's just a guy walking in. And when I went and got an oil change, and one day at Universal Toyota, went in there, and the sales guy comes out and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just waiting for my oil change, and I'm just looking to see what's on the lot." He goes, "Let's get you over here, and let's look at these new Tundras that just came out." Immediately, when I looked and I saw the package, the outdoor, or what do you call it, the off-road package, it was the TSS, which are only done in the southern. I fell in love, and I was like, "Oh."
Was that the blue one?
No, yeah, the blue that was blue-black. Yeah, it had that shine. And so we test drove it, and I've never been in a truck that felt so sturdy.
Yeah.
And I was a Chevy guy. I was only buying American products. That was my life. But, Toyota's built in San Antonio, so it wasn't too far of a stretch.
That's what we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I got into that one. Had it for 2 years. And then I got picked up to go to Concoski. I left the food bank in New Braunfels. But when I got that truck, all of a sudden, I was a different person in New Braunfels. And it's strange, but people treated you different, or you felt different? Because I drove a truck. I was, "Hey, how are you? How are you?" Like when they see me pull up in a truck, okay. And granted, it wasn't a Dodge. Dodge and Fords are very big in New Braunfels. Sure. But it was weird. Everybody, all of a sudden, I was known, and for the truck and being a guy that drove a truck, it's the weirdest thing that ever happened to me out in New Braunfels. But I opened a lot of doors, and I've become very successful out there. And then it got stolen. So
that's okay.
The blue-black one got stolen one night. My roommate knocked on the door and says, "Hey, your truck's not in the driveway." And I thought he was playing. I was like, "It's 4:00 in the morning. Don't be messing with me." And long story short, that these kids were trying the doors through the neighborhood. Mine opened up. I forgot to lock the doors, and I don't know if I can say. Somehow they got it started and they got it out the driveway.
Okay.
We'll say that part off camera. And so when the cops came, they're doing my information, saying, "Do you have kids?" And I said, "No, I'm a single man. I don't have any kids. The neighborhood only has about 10-year-olds, like nobody that could fully drive."
Right.
And they said, "Where's your keys?" And so it was just a mess. So they apparently a spare key was in the safe. They got into the safe within the truck, had a safe, and the kids drove off with it. So they were being chased. They ran a couple of red lights. The cops found them. They ran a couple of red lights. And the next thing you know, they're like, "Hey, we found your truck, but it's being chased right now on the south side of town, over off of Zazamora."
And you were like, "Please, Jesus, let them total it."
No, I love that truck. And so they're like, we got them stopped. And then they come back, "Sorry, Lou, we have bad news." And I was like, "Well, what's the bad news?" Like, the truck was involved now in an incident with the police car, because they were trying to back up and they were wrecking into the police car to try to get away.
Oh, wow.
So they were trying to ram their way out of, they went down a dead end and were trying to get away. And so then they're like, "Sorry, we don't know when it's going to be released to you." So I'm like, "All right, at least they found it. Well, now it's wrecked. What am I going to do?" And so I got it back, and there's a news camera waiting for me. So
At home?
KSAT. No, at the.
Oh,
so they
it's
said,
site.
hey, the truck, we can clear it. Like it's good to go. Incident, like it was caught on camera, so it's fine on whatever.
He's
so
like, but you're gonna need a tow truck.
yes. So I get out there and there's a KSAT van sitting on the side of the road, and I see my truck, and remember it had the blue lights underneath. So I went running down, found it. There was beer inside, and so they did an interview. It was like, hey, talk about your vehicle.
So they were having a great time.
They
in the
were
truck.
having a blast. These teenagers. So it was.
You're like, I don't even do this in my truck.
I know the truck was such a virgin. It didn't do anything. So I got it back, and it just didn't feel right. So then I got a call. My roommate drove Tundras, with the Tacoma, and then he got a Highlander and a 4Runner. So I went in and traded it in for a new one because I was like, it just doesn't feel like it rode different. I got it fixed and repaired, but I was like, it's no longer my truck.
Right.
Then I got into the brown black one, which was beautiful.
It's like when your significant other sleeps around.
Correct.
All of a sudden, we're not compatible anymore.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And then so I had that for 2 years, and then the finance officer called and said, hey, you guys have been in your trucks for 2 years, and so my roommate's like, hey, it's got to be a package deal. 1 sale, 2 vehicles. Let's go make it happen. And so I walked on the lot, and I saw this Lunar Rock truck, the green one, with the red stickers on it.
Well, what happened to the brown one?
Well, I traded it in for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a trade-in. I had it for 2 years, and I loved that one. It was beautiful. All the pictures.
It was, you know what? It wasn't. It was a beautiful truck, but I felt like I was like, Louie's getting into a very responsible age.
Yes.
Because this looks very mature.
Yes, it was more of a mature.
Yeah.
And when I was looking, when they mentioned to go into, when I was looking for this new truck, every truck that they were showing me was a more, like the inside was beautiful, but the outside was,
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I'm not that old to where I still want something that's sexy on the outside
Sure.
and the inside.
Yeah, you went to our heads.
Correct, exactly. And that's what this one does.
Yeah.
So, in fact, if you go to Red McCombs, this is where I got my last 2 trucks. If you go to the website, they do their own custom designs.
Okay.
RMT, Red McCombs Toyota.
Okay.
And my truck is still listed or still shown as a branding of the company that does their own designs.
Oh,
so it's the
okay.
first one you see when the slideshow starts. You see my truck, and the only thing that's different is when I bought mine, it had the Red McCones on the side in orange.
Mm-hmm.
They took that off, but they left their logo. And then I decided I like the orange logo because
Yeah.
it goes with the orange underneath. But then I made my own logo, Son of LA, to honor my dad,
Okay.
Louie Arcos. And so, and I love elephants. Elephants has always been like a thing
Yeah.
for me. So I made my own brand and badged the truck with my own brand. But yeah, it turns heads everywhere it goes. I have people stopping me.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I turned the corner right here and I'm like, fucking Louie. I've got a 2013 still. You know what I am a little disappointed in? Now that we've kind of hashed this out and I see how we got to the truck that we're in right now, I'm a little disappointed. And I don't want to be judgmental, but I'm fixing to be.
Okay.
Your outfit matches a truck, except that those black stripes should have been orange, Louie.
You're right. In fact, I have orange shoes. There's a store called Kicking It in San Antonio. It's a boutique Nike store, and they had these. It's a little darker green, but a green-gray tennis shoe with the sole is orange. It looks just like the truck. But this is Adidas, so I was gonna wear the whole outfit, but I was like, no, I can't do that.
You know what's funny is like, man, like I said, I got mine used a while back, and I love it. I mean, it's still, it's an old beat up truck. It's a 2013. I go to my sister's ranch and I scratch the shit out of it. It's kind of one of those trucks where it's like, I'm not worried about it.
Right.
It stays dirty. Like I said, when we go hunting or whatever, we're riding around her little place. I get scratched up and I throw crap in the back, and sometimes there's deer blood hanging out. So I love it. I get in these little kicks, man, and I try and avoid dealerships because when I go, I want something.
Right.
So I get on these kicks where I'm like, let me check it out. Recently, if you want like a higher end, and I've been I got my buddy that owns this place. Sometimes he lets me borrow one of his trailers. I got to have a bigger truck because it's got to stop the weight of the trailer.
Right.
Those trucks, if you want a nice one that's a 250 and up, you're looking at $100,000. Louis, I spent $150 buying my house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And granted, that was 15 years ago, but I have a hard time justifying, hey, let me go pay $120 for a truck when I paid $150 for my house.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
It's crazy. And I look at myself and I was like, what did I do sometimes? But I'm out of my house more than I'm in.
Yeah.
And then the role I play, sometimes you had to have that visibility.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's a brand. And every time I buy a new truck, I'm like, okay, this is the last one. I'll run it down.
Never.
And then something happens, and then bing, here we go again. So I'm praying that this one will last a little longer than 2 years.
Yeah. No. And I just, for me, like a lot of times, it's the, man, that's too expensive. But then I sit there and go, what are the younger people going to do? You know, I mean, I got my truck, I don't know, 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's like, what are these guys going to do when the lower model is 150?
Correct. Yeah.
When we were growing up, and I'm going to cough this whole time because it's that time of year. When we were growing up, you know, if you paid $50,000 for a truck, you had the high end model.
Correct.
You know, now that
barely scratches the surface.
It's getting you in the base model.
Yeah, you're rolling down your windows yourself.
it's kind of, and you know what's funny you say that. I'm like, I'm 48, and I sit there and go, man, you see these nice. I'll tell you right now, I am in love with the 350 Denali. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, but I sit there and go, it's a lot of money, man, and I'm already 48. Do I need all that truck? And then I kind of go back to the truck I grew up with was a 77 Ford Ranger Standard. And I go, you know what? If I'm going to get something, what if I just get an old truck with a new motor in it? You know, you can go to, I think there's A&E in New Braunfels, and there's, I think, Classic Cars in Houston. And you're still going to spend $50,000.
Right.
But you get that, when you close that door and it's metal on metal.
You hear that. Yes.
And I mean, they're beautiful, you know? They're beautiful. And it's like, one day I would love to have a classic vehicle, probably a truck. Mm-hmm. But then I sit there and go, I'm like, man, there's going to be a single cab. It's going to be, but you know, at this age, I'm not doing the stuff I did when I was 20. Right. I mean, still go down the beach.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I'm not really hauling anything. You know, every now and then, like I said, I use his trailer, but for the most part, it's like, man, I'm on the fence. So I sit there and I go, and then it rains, and my truck's like me. We both look good wet. So when it rains, I'm like, man, I still like that truck.
Yeah.
And the styles are different. You know, I think the newer models are kind of more narrow, and these are kind of wider.
It's still got the wide body, the big, like it looks like a truck, like it feels like a truck.
Except for when you get a park in a parking lot, and now you can't get out. You're the fat guy squeezing, and it's like, oh. But no, man, you got some beautiful vehicles.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to bring you in just because I love shit at you, Louie. I think you're the man.
You humble me.
You are still Mr. San Antonio, and if people aren't following you and looking at everything you do, they should. And I'll be honest with you, you do so much, I have no clue what you do. So what are you up to? You said you're not in Gronkowski anymore, right?
Correct, yeah.
So what are you doing now?
In May of 20, I left Gronkowski Charitable Foundation and went to San Antonio Sports. So the CEO, Jenny Carnes, our CEO, she's been with the organization for, I think, 20-something years, maybe more.
Oh, wow.
And she started as an intern out of college at UIW, where she played 2 sports. Started an intern, and now she's our CEO. So they have some great events that they do, but they needed additional ways to fundraise and to bring in more revenue.
What is San Antonio Sports?
So San Antonio Sports is the sports commission for San Antonio. So they go out and bid on national events to come to San Antonio. They're sporting events.
Okay, so like when the NCAA comes to San Antonio,
Yes.
they're involved in that.
Correct.
Okay.
So we have what we call SALOC, and SALOC is underneath San Antonio Sports. So they'll go and bid on the Final Four, and whether it's basketball, volleyball, the Warrior Games for the military, they come in and do things. And so there's also like a national diving competition. Last year, there was like an international tennis doubles competition and singles. So
Are they involved when like international soccer teams come to town too, or is that something else?
We bet on it as well.
Okay.
So we bet on on the FIFA things.
Gotcha.
To at least be a host. We don't have a facility that can hold or do a FIFA event because I believe they like an outdoor stadium versus a dome.
Oh, gotcha.
And so we actually house in the dome. So but I started with them and learned a lot immediately. There's a young lady who's my colleague. She's incredible, and she does sponsorship. So our Hall of Fame, our All-Star basketball game, our All-Star football game, we host for high school.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have our corporate cup, which is like a field day for adults for companies. And so it's like a week-long event with pickleball and tug of war and all these things you did as a kid that all companies come and put their teams together and they cook out and they have a tailgate party. And so those are our big fundraisers. And then we also do the the Hall of Fame tribute. So we induct San Antonio sports does the Hall of Fame, and so we have like Shaq in there. I think I don't know a lot of the Spurs because I'm a Laker fan from LA.
Oh no! Let me turn this off, Louie.
And so, but I say Shaq because he was with LA. But
We're gonna say David Robinson's in there.
Yeah, David Robinson is in there. I'm Dan Cook. If you remember, I grew up here in San Antonio, so Dan Cook was the sports announcer or the sports caster for Kens 5 for many years.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of notable San Antonians, even folks that have played sports in San Antonio or have roots here.
Where's the Hall of Fame located? Can people visit that?
Yeah, well, you would have to get a pass.
Okay.
And so, but it's in the dome on the third floor.
Okay.
Is the Hall of Fame. So the golden plaques or the bronze plaques run the third floor. And so we have a nice ceremony, and it coincides with our gala. And so this year, we just announced we've inducted the 1999 Spurs championship team as a whole.
Cool.
And so they will be inducted there. The first original Coyote, Tim Dirk, is also inducted. And then they'll forgive me, I hope, but I forgot the other three, but we have 3 other inductees.
How long was Dirk the Coyote?
Maybe.
Wasn't he like for like 20 years or something?
Yeah,
like
he
that?
was like the original, and I think they took the concept from what I heard from UTSA had a mascot, and the Spurs like, hey, we need to do something like that, and so the Coyote was birthed, and Tim Dirk did it for many years, and I think there's only been 3, maybe.
Wow.
So and when I met him, he looks. I thought he was taller. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, you're already like 6'5", Louie.
True. But the Coyote is almost as tall as me. But I forgot that the eyes sit at the mouth, and so then the rest of the head goes up.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I do now, and so we look for sponsorships. And the reason why I joined is the events is fine. The sporting events is great. I was in athletics. I knew I played sports through my military career. But it's our programming which drew me in. And so we have programming for youth called I Play After School. And it's for children in 3rd through 5th grade, both boys and girls. It's a co-ed teams. And throughout the school year, we teach them 4 sports. And then they included mental wellness. So a child to understand, you can be mad, but it doesn't mean you have to strike out.
Sure.
You can understand your emotions and kind of how you deal with it. And so we stay in the mental wellness portion of it. Once you cross that line of mental health, then you need licensed clinicians and you need more of a hands-on. And so then we also teach them nutrition education. And going back to my roots with the food bank has the chef program where they teach nutrition courses. And so the kids are being taught nutrition and also character development. So they'll learn 4 sports in a school year. And then within the framework of that every quarter, they'll have 7 to 8 weeks that they'll do the sport, and during that week they'll also get this extra education and kind of building the foundation of a better student. And so that was immediately for me, because when I look back, I didn't make friends in elementary. I was very shy and introverted, but when we played kickball, when we played basketball, like that's when my teammates became my friends.
Sure.
And though it was only for that moment, and when we get back into the class, like I'm still going back to little Louie, like not really in extroverted like I am today.
Yeah.
But sports meant a lot to me, and so I know that these kids, could be life changing for them.
Sure.
And so then when you look at the comparison of building confidence in a child, like all those things, little by little, will develop that. And so we have that programming that goes on, and then we have a community program called Activate. Activate is almost daily programming year-round, where anybody for free can go to a yoga class, they can go to a Zumba class, they can do a body pump class, they can do all these different physical activities.
Really?
Yeah, in San Antonio, and they're moved around all over the city, so that way nobody can say, well, I don't have access. I don't have the ability to go here or there, I can't afford it. Well, it's free. You just got to show up and log on to the application online and just show up and participate. And so we built a community of folks that are doing that right now. And every quarter we end it with a 5K race that's free again. So everything is free to the community. And with this role that I took on with San Antonio Sports, I'm also on the Mayor's Fitness Council as an executive committee member, because the person that was with us moved on to another job, so I filled her role. And so I sit on the Mayor's Fitness Council as executive committee member, and they have so many other things that are free as well. And so it's just building this community. If you look back 15 years or so.
So when you say marriage fitness, is that like a marriage counseling type thing?
I'm sorry, Mayor's.
Oh, Mayor.
Mayor's Fitness Council.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I was hearing marriage. I was going to send Nina over there. Well, let's back up a little bit because I don't want to lose track of some of the stuff we've talked here in the beginning. But like the one for the kids, that sports type of thing, is huge for kids.
Yes.
I really believe that kids should all kids should participate in some type of sports. Multiple things happen when you're a kid and you're in a team sport. Individual sports are great too, but team sports more so because you have this, for lack of a better term, this mutual suffering, right? Because you're working toward a goal in a group. You're either successful together or you fail together.
Yes.
But sports is like, my dad was huge in this. I believe in it too, where sports is literally, it's literally a microcosm of what life is, right? When you have a kid who participates in sports, he learns to win, he learns to fail, he learns to lose, he learns that the winning is temporary, the losing is temporary. He learns what additional effort gets him, what lack of effort gets him, and it all happens in this little tiny ball where if they fail, it's not like being a 40-year-old out in the world failing,
Right.
For the first time, because you've been taken care of. You're participating in these things and you grow from that, right? And you build a stronger attitude and mentality. And eventually, you gain friends from that. You'll gain people that maybe are less kind to you because you didn't do well on the team or you're from a different team. But you learn how to deal with all those things in a very small kind of bubble. That way, when you get older and you leave home or you go off to college or you get a job or now you're working in a firm and you're dealing with people, you know how to deal with people better, especially the people who don't want to give you what they probably should as far as being polite.
Yes.
Right? So I love that. So how do kids get involved in that, or what kind of kids are y'all looking for?
So for that program, we are only in Title I schools currently.
Okay.
And so we have 66 schools that are participating in 7 school districts throughout Bexar County. And again, it's for children in Title I schools, which is heavy, that they're more federally based meal programs, and so free reduced lunch programs. And so these students don't have the capacity, or their parents don't have the ability to put them into a football league, to put them into a soccer league, and pay for all the things that go along with that.
It's not cheap.
No, it's not. And so we really are focused on giving them access to that. So when you talk about access and inequality, these children need the same breaks as other children of affluent families have. And so this is why we provide it just to that target population. And so, it takes money. We provide them shoes, T-shirts, socks, all the equipment. Like, we take care of the kid. And so some of them, this is the only new pair of shoes they get. And so you'll see the shoes come out in the first session, then you see them in the second session, and they're wearing down. And so, but it's only for 3rd through 5th grade is the competition. And we're hopefully going to look to do a 6th grade eventually, because children can then get into UIL sports in school at 7th grade. And so we're laying that foundation, and there's studies done on the impact. I remember reading that there was one report done that out of the top 500 companies, the CEOs, I think like 75% of them did early youth sports in some way, somehow. So all the things that you mentioned, it builds the confidence, the teamwork, and understanding you can't win alone.
Yeah.
It takes a team to get there, even if you're working by yourself, but it's the support around you. And so this is what we're doing. So it's not open to every school, but we're looking to eventually, as we build capacity and sustainability with more dollars donated, we can get into more schools. And so this is where the vision is for this program. And it's done a lot. And so this year, we're very proud to say that a child that participated in iPlay Sports years ago was in our all-star football game, high school football game.
That's
so
awesome.
We had one individual that played football through iPlay years ago, that now has graduated high school and played in our high school all-star football game. Yeah. For our all-star basketball game coming up in March 23rd this year, coming up next month, we have 3 students, I believe, that have started as our youth in iPlay, and that has carried them through, that they continue playing a sport, and now they will be in our basketball all-star game.
That's awesome.
So that's the impact. That's the full circle moment. And so it really is profound to say this is what we're leading to. though the community and where I came from, like for the funders and the philanthropic folks, some of them don't understand that we're bridging that gap, that we're providing the children a resource and a way to better themselves and to change the trajectory of a child. But they think, oh, you just put on a sporting event. It's not just playing sports.
No.
There's so much more.
Yes.
And to be honest, and hopefully they're not going to see this, but they probably didn't play sports to understand
Sure.
the impact and importance of it. One of our greatest philanthropic advocates and funders in the community, Harvey Najum, loves children and really supports and does a lot of funding through his foundation, believes in what we do. And so that shows you that it's not a one single mindset, that folks understand there is a greater impact of what we can do. Because to play our sports, you have to keep your grades up. You have to be a good character at school. You can't be a troublemaker. So it's changing the trajectory of the children. So
Sure.
it's impactful that what we're doing, and to be able to provide that wellness, mental wellness portion of it, really is going to make greater children that will grow up to be greater individuals and future leaders of whatever they decide to do when they get out of high school.
Yeah, I get where if some people haven't been exposed to sports or team competitions at an early age, it seems cute, right? And it seems like, oh, that was fun. But for a kid who doesn't have much going on, or maybe doesn't socialize well, or maybe doesn't have access to certain things, that one game a week or whatever, however many it is, they look forward to it
Yes.
all week long, and that is very impactful on a young person who might be struggling with school or might be struggling with getting in trouble. You wish everybody was ambitious and said, hey, I'm going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
But some kids, they need an incentive, and that incentive might be, hey, you want to participate in this thing that you really enjoy doing, you got to do X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
And I think it's great, man. I think it's great. So the second part of that you were talking about earlier, which was the education on eating meals and how to cook and things like that.
Yeah.
Where does that happen at? Is that at the food bank, or do y'all have different locations where people can participate?
That's part of that program. So with the kids program, the coaches that are employed by the school districts, they actually teach the curriculum. They're taught the curriculum, and then it's broken down into a very to meet the same education level as the children. So it's very basic, but it's building the foundation.
Okay.
And so the coaches actually teach that, and they teach the wellness. So they're given a coach's playbook that has all the different components.
So the kids get to be exposed to the same people.
Correct.
And learning from, they might be learning from Louie and they're playing sports, but at the same time, Louie's taking them off to the side and going, hey, this is something else you need to learn.
Correct.
That's awesome.
So, they respect the coach. The coaches always have this.
That's a blessing to have people like that. That sounds like a lot of work for a
And
coach.
these coaches are so impassioned and love what they do, and they love this program. There's a coach that's out at Judson, where I went to school, so I'm very proud of them. They won last year's total championship. But the coach actually broke down on stage, and he said, these are like my own children. I care for them as if they were my own. Yeah. And the kids love them back. You can see that they're the mutual admiration and the support that they get from him. And, they have to keep their grades up. All these things make this child, the children, really better. And so it should be in every school that needs it. And so, but this is where I come in and try to help raise funds so we can expand the program into other additional schools. And we need the school districts to want to do it, and to get a coach or a teacher that says, hey, I'll take the charge. I'll give up. So these coaches are giving up their free time because it's after school. So that's when they're teaching them the sport, they're teaching them all this extra education. And so they have to give up their time from their families or whatever else they have going on. So it's a dedication of the school districts to want it in their schools, dedication of the coach to do it, and then the parents to register their kids and said, hey, my child, I think, would be benefit from this. Yeah. And so it's a whole component. It's just not, well, the kids just show up. No, and it's only 20 per school. So one team per school and 20 children. We could be doing so much more if we could have the resources to get more done.
What does fundraising look like, Louie? Like, you always hear that from people, but what does that look? I mean, you talked about putting on events where y'all raise some funds, but what is the other part of that people don't see? What does that look like, having to go and raise funds?
Fundraising is, it's weird because I just did an article for Voyage San Antonio about my story.
Okay.
And I briefly hint at something. So when I was at Konkoski, I went to go visit a nonprofit to, look through their materials and to look at, they were applying for a grant, and we're going to kind of review some of the questions. And I found out after the meeting that the development person that does their fundraising told their CEO, hey, Louie's coming. I've known him from the food bank. I'm not Louie. Like, I'm not aggressive fundraising. And the word aggressive comes off as a negative connotation, but I live and breathe fundraising in the community and development 24/7. So no matter where I'm going, I'm always thinking, what's next? How do I connect things that will come back to can I connect to my organization? And now it's even beyond just San Antonio sports. Because of Konkoski, I have a relationship with all different types of nonprofits. And so if I see something that aligns with foster care or for other children or disabilities or the arts, like how can I help them as a community uplift our community altogether? And so it's relationship based. It's being truthful and genuine. How do I make sure I'm connecting with a potential donor? And it may not even be money. It may be like yourself, giving me a platform for getting exposure and outreach. And so people understand what we do. It is dollars matter. Or, hey, I'll get involved like you did in New Braunfels, the New Braunfels Food Bank, when you came and volunteered for our Christmas party.
Well, I also had selfish reasons behind that, Louie. We talked about it a minute ago, but we'll move on.
Yes. And so it's all-encompassing. It's social media. It's looking at opportunities to leverage. And I tell you, I learned fundraising from probably two of the best people in the business, and that's Eric Cooper at the food bank and Michael Guerra. Those two gentlemen, I just listened and learned from them, and then put the Louie spin on it, and it becomes me. So although the three of us were great at fundraising, we all have our different ways of doing it. And so I'm more of the emotional, hug you, show you love, and there's other ways to people who will fundraise. And not to say I'm the greatest fundraiser, but I love it.
You're fairly good at it, Louie.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And so, but that's fundraising. It's just relationships and always trying to find how can I connect with anybody in front of me and tie them into what I do as an organization or to another nonprofit. And so basically that's fundraising and looking at all social media types and pictures and make sure you stage the right picture if you have to. Like you can capture great things, but it's very rare to capture a singular moment. Yeah. But sometimes you got to stage it, say, hey, I need to capture the moment the way I think a donor would want to see it sometimes.
Well, what's important is I think a lot of times people, I'm going to speak from like Joe Blow working his job, blue collar type thing. Mm-hmm. When people hear of donations, I'll give you an example, and this is on a very, 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 very small level compared to what you guys have going on. But it's like, when you back home, people like to do plate sales or donate mm-hmm. for people who are sick. And it's funny because immediately I think when people hear of donating, they go, I'm already broke, I can't donate. But I think when you can, like you're talking about these photos that you are putting together, mm-hmm. I think when somebody sits there and goes, they can visualize where their dollars are going to, it makes a connection there because everybody wants to be helpful, right? Yes. I think a lot of people don't, and then I'm guilty of this too, where I don't even understand what's out there. I don't even understand who's doing what and
right.
and how they're doing it and who's it benefiting. So the visual of it, the whether it's a podcast or whether it's a photo or a video or Instagram reel, it's like people want to see where their money's going, mm-hmm. And when they can connect with something, with a program, with a person, with a child or whatever it is, I think they're more apt to go, you know what, I'm not as broke as I thought. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let me help out. And a lot of times it's our connection to the program because we might have somebody who's sick. We mm-hmm. might have somebody who's special needs or has cancer or, maybe grew up with in an area that was less funded or had less access to things or grew up alone a lot, and it's like there's this connection there, and I think people want to be a part of helping that, and on top of that, there's tax break, man.
Yes.
I mean, realistically, we had a conversation with my buddy Dustin. Remember, mm-hmm. we went to that restaurant, and it was funny because I could see where Dustin's point of view was, because I kind of aligned more with him, where it's kind of like, I'm uncomfortable. But to hear you talk about it, it's like, okay, well, hang on, it's going to benefit people, but there's also a business aspect to this,
Correct.
right? There's the tax deduction of somebody who's going to donate money or donate something, but there's also, it's just this give and take, and it's kind of like, okay, you don't have to feel negative about asking for money. You're not bringing these dollars in and buying a new boat.
Right.
You're paying people who do certain things, who maybe process paperwork or continue the whole process to giving these kids access. It's not like you got a nephew and I'm going to give you $20 so you can go play video games, right? It's, hey, we need to help fund this organization. That way they can help more people.
Exactly.
I think I told you a long time ago, I was selling merchandise and I would give the money to MD Anderson. And I was so stupid because I was always broke, because I felt this guilt of, hey, I'm holding on to some dollars, or do I hold on to some dollars and buy new merchandise to sell, or do I give it all to MD Anderson? Because it wasn't a lot. I mean, it was whatever I could do. And I sat there and I go, no, I can't hold on to any of those funds, because I'm taking away from what I'm trying to accomplish. But in reality, I was cutting myself short, because now I can no longer go make new merchandise to make more money to continue the process. And I think that's where it gets complicated, and it needs people like you who understand the process. So I think it's awesome what you're doing.
There's two types of donors when people look at when they want to give. There's those that do it from an emotional standpoint,
That's
because
me, Louie.
the heart is there, so they're going to give from the emotion. And then those are the more impact. What are my dollars impacting? Like if I'm going to give somebody $20 of my hard-earned money that I work for, what's the impact? Is it going to, just keep the lights on, or does it go directly into the programming? Does it go help the kids or foster care or feed an animal? So those are the two types of donors. And so when I would have a meeting with a potential donor, it's trying to align. If you don't already know where they're coming from and you're just having a conversation, you kind of just set the table for them. Talk about the impact of the dollars, what $20 does for your program. And then if you kind of don't see a lot of light up for that in their eye, then you go into the emotional part of talking about the stories of what you're doing, and whether it's a child or a senior. Like I can tell you, I have so many stories with the food bank, and even working at Soldiers Angels for a while that I did for military and veterans, and even now in San Antonio sports. There are stories that I'm hearing about the impact, and so you just bank those. But I go see dudes. That's why you see me out all the time, a lot on social media. Because if I am going to try to help an organization and advocate for them and leverage them, I can't tell your story better than you can.
Right.
I can tell my story because I have gone, volunteered, supported them, and have a lived experience. So then I just build it up into how I deliver a message, and that's more impactful. So, Eric Cooper has an amazing story of how he got into food banking. Very impassionate. I love hearing it. But I would never try to tell his story, because that's his lived experiences. Yeah. He can tie that in. I can say my impact and what has happened to me as a child growing up. Like you said, there's families that have been affected by so many things. And this is why I'm really impassioned about supporting all these organizations. I grew up in a household of domestic abuse. I grew up in a household with a child that my sister had Down syndrome. So a disability, disease, diabetes, heart disease, cancer. All these things have happened around me and my family, even from a sexual assault. There's all these things that are out there, and that it affects me. And as a kid, I could have easily turned a different direction and been a statistic in life versus where I am at now. So I utilize those things and those memories and those emotions from them. And this is what I push forward into the community when I go and support an organization, because I believe in what they're doing. Because either one, they've helped my family, or they're helping families that have went through what I went through, because they weren't around when all this happened to me. I'm a little older. I'm 55, sure. So it's so there's not a lot that have been around that long, but there's several that have. So it's the lived experiences, and that's how you can sell fundraising for people. And I know when people hate to ask for money because they feel like they're asking for themselves.
Right.
So start with the mission, start with the purpose, and just say, if you could help and support. There is a quote, and I'm probably going to mess it up. Those with the least amount to give the most. Those that have struggled know somebody else is struggling like them, so whatever they have, they will give the most from their wealth to give it out.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones that really support this community. And we have great funders and people of influence that really do a lot. But that's a small population. The ones that are struggling or borderline, they're the ones that are carrying the majority of that lift because they're giving whatever they can give to support whatever they're backing up.
Yeah.
That's what I love about San Antonio.
You know, San Antonio, I think, does a great job with that. You know, when you were and I think I told you this before, but when you were in New Braunfels, and that time we'd gone with a company to go volunteer, I had this kind of crappy preconceived notion of who utilizes the food bank, right? Or who utilizes certain things. And it was interesting because I think we were in the freezer, filling the freezer. I think y'all had maybe a senior group come through, and I had never realized how many seniors utilize the food bank. And I think it was maybe Monica or somebody that said, well, a lot of people supplement their income, you know, through the food bank. And it was funny because sitting in the freezer, filling the freezer, and seeing all these older folks in there, that's my grandfather, that's my grandmother, that's my mom, that's my dad, you know, and you sit there and there's that connection there. And it's funny because it isn't until you actually experience those things and hopefully it doesn't take you having experienced those things, but, you know, experience those things, participating, volunteering at these things, these different organizations really gives you a front row seat to what they're doing.
Yes.
And when you see that, you go, oh, it makes sense. And I can do more, you know? So, I mean, people should volunteer.
Yes. Because, if you don't have money, by volunteering, you're saving that organization resources. You know, you're saving them from having to employ somebody that can get that done, or whether it's part-time or contract work. So volunteering is huge for any nonprofit. And I know I said this at the last podcast, like volunteering or your skill set. If you're a CPA, or you can join a board. Good board members are needed with your expertise, whether it's you're a CPA or an attorney, or just you're good in business. You know, nonprofits are small businesses. You know, some are bigger businesses, but they need anything that you can offer. So it's just a matter of finding your passion and where you want to lie and where you want to help.
Yeah. What kind of organizations out there, Louie, are in the most need of, I guess, funding or volunteer work? Like, I think, and this kind of sounds silly, and maybe I'm probably going to sound like a jackass, but I remember there's times where it's like, me and my wife would sit there and we'll go, hey, it's the holidays, we're not doing anything, let's go volunteer somewhere. And I think the last one was at the Henry B or something. And it was like, you know, it was kind of like a shocking thing because it's kind of like, okay, everybody needs volunteers, let me call. And it's like, hey, we want to volunteer serving meals or something. I forgot where it was. And they're like, oh, we're full. And it's like, that's great that you have way too many volunteers.
Right.
But you sit there and go, I just got turned away from giving my free time. So what kind of organizations, or maybe one or two in particular that you know of, that don't get maybe as much help as maybe the San Antonio Food Bank or some of the other larger ones where people go, and it's not for any other reason than people go, hey, I want to volunteer. I hear about this one all the time.
Right.
Let's go talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe they get a more exposure than most, but what are some of the other ones that you've seen that could use the help or the funding?
Well, even for volunteering, for some organizations, it's very hit and miss. It's more in the need, whether it's the holidays. The food bank is probably one of the rare ones that you can go in 7 days a week, like, or Haven for Hope, in the kitchen or to help clean or sort out clothes. But not everybody needs them every day, like some organizations. But, you know, like Child Safe needs somebody to go in and stock the closet when kids go there. Like they have a closet that's a big room that donations are in. And so it's just a matter of picking your moments. And you know what, like, you know, we were talking about earlier about lawn mowing. Some of these organizations have to pay somebody to do the lawn. If you have a couple of big lawnmowers, you say, hey, we'll come out and we'll do your landscaping for you. That's saving costs. Anything you can do to volunteer, it may not have to be directly with the mission, but say, hey, I'll come and do your windows. In New Braunfels, we had a guy that would come and do our windows, for all those windows, at the New Braunfels Food Bank once a month. That's a huge help because, one, I think find volunteers to do that. And if a volunteer wants to connect to the food bank, you don't come to wash out windows.
Sure.
You come to serve food or to stock the pantry because that's the drive. So if somebody has a lawn service, I'll come and do that. We had a gentleman that had a service for shredding papers, a shredding company, And he volunteered, hey, I'll come out once a month and I'll take all your shredding so you don't have to pay somebody to do it anymore. That's huge savings. So again, there's not a lot that have it. Like even for us, we're a sports organization, but we don't have a need for volunteers every day on a daily basis. But when we do, we need definitely volunteers when we have our sporting events. And, we just branded this San Antonio Marathon as a destination marathon after we parted, I guess how you say it, but we're no longer affiliated with the Rock and Roll Marathon. So now we have stepped up and done the San Antonio Marathon. We would need hundreds of volunteers to help pull that off, whether it's water stations, set up, tear down, all the different events that are surrounded. The Final Four needed thousands of volunteers to pull that off, from the Fan Fest to working the gates and all this stuff. And so every nonprofit, and if you align with one, say, what is your biggest need for volunteers? Because you're saving them dollars.
Yeah, and I guess more so it's asking the question of whatever organization you're looking to help out. I think a lot of people have an idea of what help looks like, but like you said, sometimes cleaning windows and mowing the yard. So I guess being communicative with those individuals, and I guess finding something that you can get behind. It's probably always best to volunteer at an organization that you have a connection with, because you're going to be more passionate about the hours that you spend there. So I guess that's something people can do, is just reach out to them and be more, ask more questions and see what their needs are individually.
Yeah. So. And anybody saying no to a volunteer, that just makes my hair stand up. Because at the food bank, we're always saying yes. We'll find something to do. If you remember when we had the hurricanes and Hurricane Harvey had come through, or was it Katrina? The biggest one, there
was a Rita too at one point, but
there were several. Right. And so we had hundreds of volunteers coming in. We had our normal duties to do, and then we had the emergency activation of the food bank, taking all the food that we had sent it down to support South Texas. And so I was running a group of 300 volunteers and trying to figure out, like, how do we get them all together? So we were just, if you wanted to volunteer, it was yes, show up, here's our schedule, when can you come? And so it was just a nonstop. But again, the food bank has a space and a mission that could take that volume. Not everybody has that ability. Yeah. So it's just, again, talking to the nonprofit that you're aligned to, and it speaks to your soul, and said, how can I help? When do you need me the most? And so hopefully it would work from at that point.
The events that you guys hold, for the free events for people to come do yoga and things of that nature, where do people find those locations and those, I guess, availabilities?
Yeah, so they can go.
Availabilities, I think I said that right.
Yes. So they can go to our website, San Antonio Sports, and you'll go under events or programs, and you'll see Activate, all capital letters, Activate. You click that, and it'll take you to where you can download an app. So when you download the app, you register for Activate, and then it'll list a schedule. So you'll see every day there's something happening. We do pop-up yogas as well. And
so are these just in public spaces, like outdoors public spaces? Or?
Outdoor spaces, some are in gyms, like a dance studio will hold a Zumba class for us. So it's community, again, it's community driven. So these companies and businesses say, hey, you could do a free Zumba class here. And so we just make sure an instructor shows up that'll hold the class, the yoga class, the Zumba class. We're trying to work with a couple of gyms to do some cycling classes in there. Okay. So it's whatever we can find. And there's so many gyms in San Antonio. There's a whole plethora of them, and they all offer something different. And again, the intention for the gyms, I think, is, hey, we can get them in the door. Maybe we'll get a membership out of it. But for us, it's like, that's for you, but you understand that they're coming because it's free.
Right.
We don't want a sales pitch. We want our people to come in, and our clients and our families to come in and just get active. 15 years ago, we were one of the top unhealthiest cities in the nation. I think we're number 3 or number 1 at some point. 15 years ago. That's when everything started coming out. The Mayor's Fitness Council started. San Antonio Sports created Fit Family Challenge, which was only during the summer months. And that carried us for a while.
Were they doing some bicycle thing downtown too?
Yes, there's Cyclovia is with the city.
Okay.
That's a different a venue. It might have fell under, before I got there, it might have tied in. But Fit Family Challenge was just during the summer months, so the families would get out and do things with the kids, and you had a little passport that you would stamp things, like whether you walked a trail or you went to a garden or the museum, just things to get the family out and to be active. But there was they kept getting messaging, hey, we need this year round. So that's when, before I started, San Antonio Sports decided to create Activate, which is year-round programming. Now, they do take off for holidays and stuff because
Sure.
we can't get instructors during that time, and families should be spending time together.
Sure.
And so, but it's year-round programming, and it's free to the community, and we're trying to get more and more classes. I have a young man, him and his mentor, want to do a breakdancing course for us.
That's cool.
And so, could you imagine? We're trying to find the right spot and to see how we can pull it off, and maybe it's once a month or however long, but to get a youth turned into it. So,
Louie, if you don't show up with cardboard, Louie, I'm gonna be so disappointed with you.
I'm gonna have to put my logo on it and just spin on top of that.
You know what's funny is my nephew owns a gym, and it's funny because we've talked before, and it kind of circles back to these kids events that you guys do, the sporting stuff. I've talked to him before, and he says, a lot of these people, this is their club, this is their hangout, this is where they socialize. So similar to what you guys are putting on. I mean, this is opportunity for adults that maybe don't socialize very much,
Yes.
or don't participate in group activities,
Mm-hmm.
for them to come out, do something, that's gonna benefit them health wise, but also socialize.
Yes.
Get to meet people, get to interact with other folks that maybe they wouldn't. So I mean, that's a great opportunity all the way around.
Especially for a certain age bracket. You're right. Once people get home, they don't socialize. Like they go home and
Louie, that's me.
them and their dog or their family, and that's it. But this is an opportunity for socialization.
Yeah.
Because if like yourself, even myself, if I didn't have a roommate, when I get home, I don't want to talk to nobody because I'm so extroverted during the day. Mm-hmm. I just want to relax, watch a little bit of my trash TV, some sports.
What are you watching?
Oh,
Tell me, Louie.
it's called Drewski. I just started. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's what? Oh my God! It kind of goes back to, you remember Rock of Love?
Yeah.
And
Bret Michaels.
Flavor of Love.
Yeah.
Well, there's a new show on. I'm embarrassed to say this, on YouTube that I just started watching. And I can't remember the name of it. It's called, but there's a guy, I guess he says he has his own music studio, and so he puts people in the house, and they're trying to compete to see if they can be signed by his label. And then the next season, which is the one that's starting now, that I kind of got hooked on, he invited all these young ladies to come in. Some a little wretched, and so that like there's fighting and there's all this stuff, and it's just crazy. And then I follow the housewives. Like I'm a housewives fanatic.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I like to see somebody else's drama, and I can just sit back and watch. And so,
Louie, I got you beat, man.
what do you want?
I'm caught up on 90 Day Fiance. I've watched every spinoff, everything they got. The Single Life.
Yes.
Where are they now? I've watched them all, man. So I've moved on, and it's gotten real ghetto, man. Now I'm watching Love After Lockup.
Oh,
And it's where men and women date inmates while they're in prison. Oh, Louie, when you want some trash TV, let me know. I'll send you the link. Love After Lockup, Louie.
I actually lived Love After Lockup.
Oh no!
For a moment,
Wait, were y'all engaged to get married the day that person got out?
we actually dated before,
Okay.
and then parole was violated, and I'm waiting for our date. I was waiting to go on our date, and all of a sudden, I look at the phone, like I'm disappointed, like my heart's breaking. I'm like, oh, here's another bad one that's gone south. And so I'm driving home from New Braunfels, and I'm like, I can't get a call back, no answer. And all of a sudden, I look at the phone, and it says jail/prison as the caller ID. And I was like, hello? They're like, hey, I should have told you this. I was going to tell you tonight. They had violated parole, and somebody that they worked with dimed him out and said, this is where he's at. And went to jail. I waited 9 months
Wow.
for him to come back out. It was crazy. So I'm on Zoom calls. I'm on telephone calls. Like,
I'm not gonna ask how much, but did you put money on the books?
I think a total of $50 total.
Okay,
So
that's not terrible.
It wasn't bad because he stayed at Bear County for the longest time. Then he moved into like a detox or more of a looser,
Like a halfway house type
a
thing?
halfway house. And that was probably the worst thing for me because then he was calling at all hours. I was like, I'm working out. I'm at work. You just because you have free time doesn't mean you can just pick up the phone and call me. Because he can make calls anytime he wanted when he was at that other place. Comes out, we get together 2 weeks, and then it just this big blow up, and he's bucking up at me, and I was like, "You're small. Like I'm 6'5", weigh probably at least 100 pounds more than you. And you want to fight me?" And so it was a crazy. If it goes longer, and I don't want. There's more crazy stuff that happens after
Oh,
that.
we're gonna do a whole podcast
We'll have
on
to do a
it.
podcast.
You know what's funny is one thing that I think I love. I love watching human interaction, and the more dramatic, the better.
Yes.
But one thing that I find super interesting is how a lot of these, and it turns out, I mean, there's guys and girls, but it turns out like a lot of these women are dating these guys that are in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're in jail, they have nothing but time to call you and check on you and I love you. And, you know, when they get out, they want to go see family, friends, they want to go party, they want to have some drinks. And it's funny because these women are like, he's not the same person. He's not.
No.
You know, he was in a cell all day long.
Exactly.
With the same guys.
And all they fantasize is, oh, I love you.
Right.
I was getting that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, after we had broken up, right, on TikTok, it was if you want to feel loved, valued, and talk about the future, date somebody in jail. Because that's all they talk about is getting out and being with you. But once they get out, they start backtracking. Mm-hmm. Alcohol was his biggest thing. And he went back to that. And I didn't catch the signs in time. And I was like, we got into one argument we were driving back from a wedding that we went to South Texas for a friend. And we're driving back. I thought it was a great evening. And he starts talking about cutting. He was drunk. He was on whiskey the whole night, and which was. So on the way back, he's talking about, well, I'm going to make some wine when we get home. And I said, what do you mean make wine? Like,
he's like,
takes a while.
Clean the toilet when we get to the house.
He's like, well, I'm going to get some orange juice, put it in a Ziploc bag, and then add some sugar and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll cut a hole in the wall and put it. I said, we can go buy wine. Like, you're free now. We don't have to go make wine in my wall.
Yeah.
You're not cutting a hole in my wall. They go back to these patterns. And sadly enough, I found out last year, he's right back in.
Oh.
Habitual. Some people can't break the cycle. And maybe he should have played sports as a child.
Sure. Well, you know what else is interesting is like, I'm in season 3, Louie, so I'm deep.
Oh, wow.
Man, I'm deep. It's interesting how a lot of the guys in particular, and some of the girls too, but like, they're cool with going back.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few guys that you watch as soon as they get out, how uncomfortable they are.
Yes.
And one thing that I saw one guy on the show where he was uncomfortable being outside because he was so used to being closed in. His walls were close. Everybody was right next to him. And when he was outdoors, like he looked nervous. And what's wrong? And he's like, I haven't been outside at night. It was at nighttime.
Yeah.
He's like, I haven't been outside at night in 10 years. And it's like, it's the programming, right? You get programmed when you do the same thing over and over and over again. Well, these guys that are in jail for 10 or 20 years, or one guy was in for like 18 years. And it's like they become... That's their life.
Yeah.
You know, they have fun there. They fight there.
Everything.
You know, everything happens
Fall
there.
in love there.
Fall in love there. You know, and it's like, it's such an interesting show to watch. And some of it's hilarious, you know, but some of it's like, oh my God, you know, you can kind of, I worked at a jail for a year and it was a county jail. So people were in and out all the time.
Right.
It wasn't any sort of lengthy time, but you know, you see a lot of those guys. I remember hearing a conversation one time, they were in their bunks and I was walking through doing the head count. And just the conversation was, hey, man, have you ever done time in Goliad? No, man, I haven't. And it's like, you need to go do time in Goliad, man. It's a brand new jail. It's beautiful. They got up, and it's like, hey, how about like not going to jail?
Yeah, how about go to a nice hotel?
Yes, or get out of here. You know, but and you'd hear conversations all the time. They're like, oh, man, you got to go do time here. And it's just like the amount of... how comfortable they were with those atmospheres.
Yeah.
It was like, it's not, I don't understand it.
I'm not built that way. At least I hope I would never be comfortable being, I pray to God I would never do anything to put myself in that predicament. But I could not see being isolated or just captured in one cell.
Right.
I like to watch those TV shows that go on Netflix where they have informants where people that go undercover and they're just trying to figure out what's going on to tell back to the warden.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what it's called, but I've watched all of those. It's so intriguing to sit there and watch all that, and you're like...
60 days in.
That's it.
Seen it, Louie.
Oh, my God. I binge watch those like crazy,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's because of who I dated and like trying to learn and understand, but I'm so encaptured by all that. Anything law and stuff like that just really that's what I go for when I want to watch some bench TV.
Well, I hope you never circle back to that lifestyle, Louis. But if you do, call me, because by next weekend I'll be in season 4.
There you go.
So it ain't gonna take me long.
You can give me tips.
Well, hey man, I wanted to. How can people find you guys? And what is SA Sports? What are their needs currently? Like,
Okay.
what can people do who listen to this that want to participate in something, or if they want to donate, or what are some of the things that maybe folks aren't aware of that you guys put on, like even the Hall of Fame? If somebody wants to come see that, take pictures of that, what's the process to that? What's a little bit about you guys that people may not be aware of that they can get more familiar with your organization?
Yeah, so San Antonio Sports, we are, again, a nonprofit that does so much in the community as far as bringing resources in. So the biggest impact, I think, is the economic dollars. Final Four is going to bring tons of millions of dollars into the city. But for folks who want to volunteer or get involved, we need volunteers, again, not every week or every day, but we need volunteers when we put on our All-Star game, when we put on our basketball game. We'll need volunteers when we do our youth sports. So at the end of for I Play After School, completing every session of sport, we have a tournament. Like this, in March 22nd, we have our basketball tournament for all those schools. 66 schools will be in 5 different gyms around the city till we culminate to the final group of them, and then we'll all wind up at one gym to host that. But folks can donate dollars. We really are looking, again, if you give me $5 to $10 a month on a reoccurring basis, that is huge for us to be able to expand our programming. If you have your own business and you enjoy sports and you believe in that, you can actually do a sponsorship. You can sponsor a table for our Hall of Fame gala. You can sponsor one of our events, like our basketball and football. And our Corporate Cup, we're always looking for sponsorships in Corporate Cup. If you have a large enough, well, you don't even need to be that large, but you have a company that say, hey, I want to get my brand out there amongst all the companies. Like, we have the ability to have up to 92, 95 companies for Corporate Cup. So if you need some brand awareness or to be able to mingle and engage with the community of businesses, Corporate Cup is your way in. There's all these different companies at different levels that come out, and some are smaller, so we have divisions. So there's plenty of ways for a company or an individual to get involved that believe in what we call the power sport. Was coined years ago, but the power sport is truly impactful. And so they just got to find me. They can find us at sanantoniosports.org, or it's L. Guzman at sanantoniosports.org. They can email me, and I think they can find me online as well if you go to the website.
Okay.
So those are the ways to get involved. Just dollars help. We need operational dollars so we can continue to push this programming out. If they have their own gym or they have a fitness class that they teach and they have space for us to come out, even if it's a warehouse that's empty most of the time, hey, you guys can do a Zumba class here, or you can do a breakdancing class here. There's different ways to get involved.
That's awesome.
And if it's not with us, there's so many nonprofits, and this is a robust city that has a ton of nonprofits that need support. Find something that speaks to your heart. Like tonight, we're going to the ballet because I support the arts.
That's awesome.
We coined a phrase, scene. So if you're a child that grew up like myself, and how do you get out of your situation? How do you get out of what you were born into? Whether it's a low income family and they're struggling, whether it's their fault or not. Like, people struggle. Our city, for being so large, is still probably one of the poorest cities. How does a child break that barrier? I did it through the military. But if you look at it, the only ways to get out of there is sports, education, the arts, or military. Sports, if you're great enough, you get a scholarship, you go to college. It doesn't make you rich all of a sudden, but it gives you the opportunity to better your life.
Sure.
Education, again, scholarships, education, get a degree, better your life. The arts, ballet, musical instrument, you have an opportunity to go to school and completely develop and get out of the situation you grew up in. Or military. I chose the military route, but now I see the value of everything else that leads up to that. So to break that, you need to have a seam. You got to create a seam in your life, and that's sports, education, arts, and military, to be better. So that's going to change the trajectory of many children to make us a better city, and hopefully they'll come back and help continue to make the city better.
Outstanding, Louie. And how can they find you if they want to follow you?
It's Louie A on
Louie.
Instagram. It's Louie A. And on Facebook, it's Louie A. Guzman, which I got to change to It's Louie A. But I have my own logo. I have my own brand.
I saw that. Looks sharp.
Thank you. And that was designed by Rutkin Productions out in Bernie. So Kathy, that owns Rutkins, and her daughter is an amazing young lady that leads the organization Aid the Silent, which helps detect children that are born with hearing deficiencies and get a diagnosis, and it helps them get hearing aids put in.
Awesome.
Like, it's incredible. You never know what's out there until you seek it or you need it. So
Yes.
if anybody is just looking to say, Louie, I have this issue, or can you help me with this, or who do you know that can do this, reach out to me on Instagram or on Facebook, or find me on social media. Just let me know what I can do to help. And so there's a huge network, and I'm here to utilize it to help anybody that's in need.
I love you, Louie.
Love you, my brother.
I love you, Mr. San Antonio. Everybody check out Louie on social media and check out San Antonio Sports.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.